James Monroe, the last founding father. James Monroe contributed to the growth of the United States by fighting in the Revolutionary War, negotiating the Louisiana Purchase, and writing the Monroe Doctrine. A lot of people don't think very much about James Monroe except that he was the 5th President of the United States, but he was much more. James Monroe fought in the Revolutionary War in different battles, militias, and ranks. He served in the Virginia Militia and in the Continental Army. He fought in 4 different battles, such as the Battle of Monmouth and the Battle of Trenton, where he was severely wounded in the shoulder. Lastly, James Monroe served in the Virginia Militia as a private, in the Continental Army as a lieutenant, and eventually a major. James Monroe was saved on the battlefield by a volunteer doctor named John Berrien Riker. If it had not been for this volunteer doctor, James Monroe never could have lived on to write the Monroe Doctrine, negotiate the Louisiana Purchase, or start the era of good feeling. James Monroe was one of the 2 individuals that helped negotiate the purchase of the Louisiana Territory, and without him, the U.S. would not have nearly as much land as it has now. President Jefferson sent James Monroe and Robert Livingston to France to negotiate with French ruler Napoleon about buying New Orleans. Napoleon decided that he wanted to sell them the whole Louisiana Territory for $15 million, which was $6 million over Monroe's budget. Even though it was over his budget, Monroe stepped up as a leader and bought the territory that is now 1/3 of the U.S. In 1823, James Monroe followed up on his actions as a young man fighting for American independence. He was writing his annual message to Congress when he included a segment that is now referred to as the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine states that any attempt by European powers to colonize America will be considered hostile and require U.S. intervention immediately. Not only did the Monroe Doctrine protect the U.S., it protects all of North and South America from threats. The Monroe Doctrine was the most important document written since the Declaration of Independence in 1776. The Monroe Doctrine has been cited and invoked by U.S. presidents and politicians. The Monroe Doctrine is still in effect today and shows the legacy of James Monroe.
Maybe the most important thing he did as a leader was the way he focused on national security during his presidency. So if you think about the time frame when he took office, he was the first president elected after the War of 1812.
After serving in the Revolutionary War, Monroe devoted 40 years of his life to public service, serving in more public positions than any American in history. Monroe was the only president other than Washington to win a re-election unopposed. Monroe refused any pay in the Revolutionary War and spent many thousands of dollars of his own money to help the nation's interest. Monroe was never paid back. He had to sell his plantations to pay his bills, and he died poor. James Monroe is a great example of a man who was dedicated to his country and his fellow Americans.